everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I had a question on one of my, one of my Instagram photos. I think about spreads in general. I can't remember exactly, to be honest, but I thought for kind of somebody that was new, kind of beginning with tarot, and just had some questions about spreads to use as a beginning reader. And so I thought I had the I grabbed this. It's at the top of my little pile over here. So, and it's kind of a basic, clear, and a nice size. So this is the Lovely Spirit Within Tarot by Stephen Bright. And I thought I would just talk a little bit about basic spreads. I am, as I've, this has come up in different tags and questions, I am a person that enjoys spreads. But I tend to, at this phase, well, let me give you a little bit of a history. So, when I first started reading tarot, I had the Llewellyn Tarot with the Llewellyn Guidebook, and I had this little, I mean, literally, I've got it somewhere. I've got to find it. But it was about this big of this little, like, pocket tarot. And I remember it had Marseille images on it. And so it was a nice little way to learn with Marseille images, but then also having the Llewellyn Tarot. And then that was kind of how I learned tarot. I don't remember looking at spreads in that book, to be honest. I'll have to see if I can find it. However, the Llewellyn Tarot, I've got two guidebooks because I repurchased the deck, but I believe the only one in here is the Celtic Cross. But I don't want to say that if I'm wrong. So it's the cards. Yeah, so here's the Celtic Cross. You can see where I cross things out. I don't use a significator. And I ended up shifting some things. No, it actually has a horseshoe, but I do remember doing this once or twice, but I was very much a Celtic Cross person. So let's just go ahead and lay out a Celtic Cross here. And there are somewhat set positions here, although you'll see some variations. This one, let's just do it how it shows it in the guidebook. So this one has you picking a chosen card to represent the significator. So for me, this would be either the person's birth card, which for me is the Chariot card, or I often use the Queen of Swords as... of course, you know how it goes. If you're looking for a particular card, I'm not going to say either the Chariot or the Queen of Swords until the very end. I love this Queen of Cups. Queen of Swords, which I do love, and I love this one in this deck. Let me see. The Chariot is this. So you would actually pick out a card to signify you. I generally, when I'm doing readings for clients, because obviously I don't, I know the Queen of Swords is my card just over time and usage, and that shows up all the time for me. So I just know that. But in general, working with clients who I don't particularly know personally, I go off of their birth card. And the way that I do this is that if you take a birth date, say December 11th, 2001, you add that all together. So I would do it 12 plus 11 plus 2001, and then let me do it because 12 plus 11 plus 2001 is 2024, and then you keep adding. 2 plus 2 is 4, and 8, so 8. Now, if you get a number that is, the way that I do it, everybody's different, right? So, you reduce it until it's a number that is part of the major arcana, or you can also just reduce it to a single digit as you do with numerology. So in this case, for this person's birth date, their birth card would be number 8, which would be either justice or strength, depending on whether you put justice at 11 or at 8. So that's how I do a birth card. There are also, I think, calculators online. So then you could choose that card and lay that card out and then go about your business. So for this instance, I'm going to go ahead and put what would be my significator for me, which would be the Queen of Swords, right? So that's the significator. You've chosen that. That hasn't come up randomly. Now, the reason that I don't like to do this with the deck, as they often show you doing them, if I'm going to do this, I will pull it from another deck, because I don't want that card to not be able to show up in the reading. That's just me personally. I don't like to remove a card from the reading. That is especially my personal card, right? I want to have that available to show up, but we're gonna show it this kind of traditional way. So then number 1 is the querent in relationship to this situation that's going on. Number 2, the next card, which would be the second one, is the cross card. It crosses over, and this is very often either something that's crossing, and in this, it can either be a good positive or a negative. It can either force or be an asset to the person, depending again on the question and the card that comes into place. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, it's just going to be able to fit, to be honest. We're going to find out together. And then overhead is a message from the higher self. And then you go underneath to the 4th one, which is what's going on in the subconscious that is having an impact on the conscious. Then we have over here the 5th, which has to do with the past. As you can imagine, this is all sort of what's going on presently, and so then this being the past. And then the 6 is, in this particular version, the 6 is relationships with others. I would probably use this as a future card, just because I would want that past, present, and future aligned, but I'm just kind of showing you there are different variations. 7th is the psychological state of the person. The 8 is the environment around the person that you're reading for. We have hopes and fears, and then at the very top we have the outcome here, which is great to see the sun as the outcome. Now again, this is the basic structure of the Celtic Cross. Most often you'll see it like this, with just the card in the middle and then the crossing card here. So you basically have a cross in the middle, a cross that is surrounding the card, and then you have the staff that's going up over across the side here. So this is very... sometimes people kind of moan and groan when they see, oh, here's the Celtic Cross in another guidebook, because it is something that's been around a long time. But, you know, part of the question would be, well, if it's been around a long time, there may be a reason for it, right? It may be something that works really well. Now, one of the things, though, you do here, which I can agree, is that it's a pretty big spread to have as the only spread, say, in a guidebook. So perhaps a beginner, somebody just picking up tarot, to really just be thrown into the deep end with this large of a spread could be a little bit overwhelming. And I do see that, although this was the very first spread that I ever did, and I continued to do it for years and years and years, and you obviously learn it and you work it out and you figure it out, make modifications. Eventually I modified how I read the Celtic Cross, and I had my own sheet, my own sort of checklist where I kind of kept track of reoccurring numbers, and so I had this whole little special reading sheet that I used for a very long time based on my version of the Celtic Cross. So yes, it is a lot to kind of jump in the deep end as a new reader, but at the same time, it worked for me, and I did, manage it, and it worked fine, right? And I used it for years. It was the only spread that I used. Years, good 9 years. So that's sort of the Celtic Cross. Now, I don't use the Celtic Cross anymore because I've just kind of morphed and over time sort of solidified what are the positions that I want to see in a spread. If I'm doing a basic larger spread of cards, what are the positions that I want to see? And so I do still have a large spread that I do, and so it's basically my general reading, and it does have positions in it. And so for me, it's important to see, I usually will start here in the middle, because this is how things, what is the situation at hand currently, is kind of key and kind of hinging on the rest. Then we're going to look, okay, well, what's going on in the past, right? What's going on in the future? That's important. I like to see the linear aspect of things to some degree in the reading. Elemental associations and correspondences are really important to me in my practice, so I want to have a position for each of the elements because that breaks down the area of our lives, right? So for the way that I do them is fire is here, and that of course has to do with our passions, our creativity, things that are transforming and energizing in our lives. Air is what's going on in the head, you know, that's a big check-in for me, what's happening in my brain, right? That's something that I need to look at. Water is looking at our emotions and the way that we are connecting with other people. And then earth is looking at our physicality of life and what's going on in our job, what's going on in physical life, again, depending on the question. And then I always have two more cards that is either looking sometimes as above and so below. Depending on the question, it can sometimes be a strength and a weakness. I really love this card. It very often does show sort of a foundational, what's going on at the base of things, what's going on overhead that I might need to pay attention to as well. That kind of energy. I apologize because, you know, heaven forbid somebody walk up the steps to their own apartment. So this is my version of the Celtic Cross, because these are the positions that, if I'm looking at a larger spread of cards, these are the positions that over time are positions that I like to take a peek into. It works with the way that I read, it works with what's important to me, and this is just over time developed in being my reading spread that I do for just a basic, in lieu of a Celtic Cross, this is a basic reading that I do. So, but again, you're looking at 9 cards, right? So you're looking at a large, whereas a Celtic Cross can be 10 cards. This is still a 9 card, and I usually pull an oracle card, so it ends up being a 10 card. So it is a large spread, but you're looking at specific, you're looking at these 3 kind of in conjunction with each other, but then you're looking at this and specifically, this and specifically, this and specifically, then how do those all interplay? There's a lot you can do there, obviously. I think I have a video on this spread by itself, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm just kind of showing you the evolution of me and spreads, right? But I will say that I usually develop spreads for a specific reason. So I want to talk about a specific topic, and so what in those topics do I want to cover? And so most of my readings, if you look at my shop, obviously you can get a very good idea about the spreads that I use. They're ones that I've developed because of that specific, whatever that specific reading is. So I have an elemental cross is a great one to do, where you do a 5-card cross. And again, this plays on the elements because there's so much you can look at here. So for me, that's fire, air, water, and earth. It's just in the order for me of geomancy lines. But you know, you can have them in any way that makes sense to you. And then you can have one in the middle for spirit, or for what's going on at the heart of the matter, right? Depending on that. That can tell you a lot of information. I think that's a really good one that's not too big and unwieldy, because you can, again, always know that your positions can be fluid. So if I'm looking at this elemental cross, right? First, I might go through and look at each of these positions in those elements, right? But then I can also read a past, present, and future if I wanted to. I could read an as above and so below. I can look at the heart of the matter of what's going on. So there's different ways that you can read those same 5 cards in a really beautiful way. So this, I think, is a nice sort of mid-size reading. And you can can, you know, I also do it as a 10 card, in which I'll lay another layer underneath, and what's going underneath the surface of this, it gives us more information. That again makes it a 10 card reading instead of a 5 card. But this is a really great way to just get a basic idea of what's going on. So that's a really great spread that I personally like to do. Another one that I really love is a 9 card, and I use this for cartomancy, for Lenormand, for playing cards, for Sibylla, for any kind of card system. And that is where, oops, got my deck upside down. That is where you simply lay out 9 cards, and it's a 9 card. Again, it's a large reading, but there are so much that you can pull out of this, and I have a whole video on a 9 card. I will put a link below. But I have a whole playlist on spreads. Anything that has to do with spreads is in there. And I know I did a whole video on the versatility of the 9 card, because it is a beautiful, versatile spread. Now you can see here is a little bit of a mistake, because I've got bleeding of my, when I edged it. That doesn't happen very often. I don't know if that's above or underneath, that's seeped under the lamination, or I would have to get an alcohol swab and check that. But anyways, that can happen. You always have to be prepared for it, especially with heavily laminated decks. Little side note here. So I'm not going to go into this, but there's a lot you can do. I read it very similarly to a Lenormand. What's going on at the heart of the matter? What is the key message in the upper left-hand corner, right? You can look at past, present, future. You can look at what's going on above, what's going on below, what's going here. You can do mind, body, and soul. You can do all kinds of things. You can connect the corners and see what the corners are saying. You can mirror it and see what does it mean when you're looking at these two and these two and these two. There's so many different things that you can do with a 9 cards, you know, a 3 square reading. And again, I have a whole video on it. So that is one that I quite love to do with any kind of cards. But again, it is a 9 card. I guess we're getting a little bit of a theme. I guess I do very often use a little bit larger spreads, but you don't have to. I also, when I'm not doing that, so if I'm not doing a large tarot and I'm not doing a 9 card, or the 5 card elemental is a really good one. I love that one. It's generally just 3 cards. In fact, that's where I very much recommend. Sorry, now I'm going to have my deck all whopper-jawed, which I don't like, which means I'll have to go through and rearrange it all, but we'll wait till we're done. And I don't know why I'm singing. I'm a huge fan of a 3 card. Whether it be Oracle, whether it be Tarot. I just think there's so much here. The one way that I would also modify this is to have a 3 card reading, and I think this was from Camellia Elias, I think is where I first, through, I think, my friend Itzy, but I think it was originally through Camellia Elias's work. But the idea of just doing a 3 card and then doing a do and a don't. Do this, don't do this. So you kind of have a situation of, you know, you've got your reading here, and it's like, okay, but now let's do some actionable things. Do this, don't do this. And it really is a fantastic 5 card reading again. So yes, I've just expanded the 3 card back into a 5 card, but it's really fantastic. So I would definitely recommend giving this one a try, because it's just, you get some really, you can get in there and dig deep, do all this kind of stuff that you want to do, but then it's like, okay, but do this, don't do this. This is what you're going to take action on. And I think it's really great to dig and mull and do all this kind of thing, but to give somebody or to give yourself actionable information, I think is really succinct, actionable information, I think is really helpful. And so that's a great one. But going back to the beauty of just the plain old wonderful 3 card, I often look, no matter how I lay these out, I very often see the center card as sort of key, and then we have extra information, or it's possible sometimes I will have that past, present, and future that you have going here, mind, body, spirit. There's so many different 3-card variations that you can go in depending on what you're trying to do. I love the within, without, what's going on within, what's going on without, and the advice card, which again, that's that actionable card here. We did a whole within, without advice. I think this is from the Marielle Tarot guidebook, perhaps. We did a whole month of this, I believe, last year, and that's a really good 3-card. What's going on in this internally, what's going on externally, and what's the advice? That's really beautiful. What you need to hold on to, what you need to let go of, what is energy that you need to pay attention to as you move forward. That's another one that I really like to do. There's so many. You can Google, you know, 3-card spreads and see so many variations of things that you can do with a 3-card spread and different ways to look at it depending on the question. So as a new person coming to tarot spreads, I would highly recommend just doing 3 cards. If you've watched some of my videos on getting to know a new deck, that is often what I will do, is just, oh my goodness, do you understand how much this drives my Libra brain crazy? Okay. I will often just lay 3 cards down. Don't spend a lot of time. I will just see this idea of working together as a team, holding your ground, and that's going to allow digging in deep and gaining information and wisdom. Then I would grab 3 more and say, okay, here we have the 9 of Cups. There's that sense of achievement that I'm seeing here with all of these cards that are sitting here, that is going to bring about balance and in moments of cycles and transformation and big shifts and changes. I won't think about it. I won't overanalyze it. I won't try to edit myself. And I just will go through the whole deck, 3 cards at a time, just really quickly. Don't think too much. Don't say, oh, you might even say something, and when you say it, it's like, okay, that was a little bit strange, or that was like, okay, I don't know that I would actually agree with that. Doesn't matter. Just go on to the next 3. It's just a way of sort of sinking into the energy of the deck, and I'll go through the whole deck until the deck is done. Then I've touched on every single card and sort of gotten an initial reaction, and it's a great way to get to know a deck, as well as get comfortable with stringing 3 cards together. So that is, I guess, as usual, long-winded way of addressing sort of what are some basic, sort of how I progressed through spreads, what ones I most, will use. Again, I use a lot of different spreads that are very specific. So, if I've just put up a spread on an ancestor spread that was kind of modified from one I had before. Well, then I'm looking for very specific things. So I'm going to this and saying, okay, well, when I'm connecting with the ancestors, what do I need to know from that situation? Well, I need to know what's going on in the branches. I need to know what's going on in the trunk, and then I need to go down into the roots of the ancestors and get that message. And that's kind of how I form that, right? If I have a mind, body, and spirit, I have a check-in reading. Okay, well, I need to check in about what's going on above, what's going on in the physical world, and what's going on in the subconscious realm. And so I did a 9 card, but based on that with a couple different decks. So most of my readings are because I wanted to address a certain situation, and what are the positions that make the most sense in that particular, whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish with the reading. And you can do the same thing with 3 cards. You can say, before you do the card, say, okay, you know what? I have a job. I have to make a decision between 2 paths of a job, right? So I might pull a card for each one. And then I might actually say, okay, that's sort of the basic here. What's going on underneath the surface of each of these that might give me some more information that's going to help me? And what is it that I need to know in making this decision? I'm just, I'm just kind of throwing this out there. But you might just, in that way, you can kind of think about, before you do the reading, what are you trying to achieve? What is it you're trying to answer in your question, and sort of set your positions for that particular question, which is what people who don't use set spreads, but might just kind of lay cards down at the table and randomly and just start talking. I've seen people do that. It's really wonderful. And I've done it a couple times with some grief work and things like that, where you just be talking about something. Okay, this first thing comes up, and we're going to talk about the Ace of Wands, that spark of intuition, that spark of beginning of creativity, and that idea of that match lighting. How are we going to tap into that? And we're going to get into the community a little bit more, right? We're going to connect with the people that are also interested in being creative and being forward pushing and transformative, because being with people who are in that same way is going to bring about, you know, energy to bring, you know, move us on our own path that way. But we need to make sure that we're not too overly taking our inspiration from other people, but we have to be seated in our own power, so that our creativity is something that we can own and use and really pay attention to. And the Queen of Pentacles, we gotta, you know, yes, we want to be fiery, yes, we want to be up there, but we've got to be grounded, we've got to be rooted, because that's going to give us the jumping off. You know, it's kind of free form, free thinking, just, you know, starting laying cards down and start, you know, you can just go that way and not even have any spreads, obviously. But in general, I am a spread person. And so I hope this little meandering video has helped you in some ways. Again, just to try to be a little more succinct, I think that a 3-card reading is a great way to start. And it's not just a starting point, it is an ending point as well. But I think just to get, you know, comfortable with a 3-card, right? If you get comfortable with a 3-card reading, you can then layer it into a 6-card reading. So you're looking at the situation and you're looking at what's now going underneath the situation. What are some underlayers that you might need to know, right? And then once you get comfortable with that, okay, well, what's going on above, right? What is some other stuff that what are some messages from our higher self about that situation? Now, all of a sudden, we've kind of pulled into a 9-card, which is just 3 sets of 3 cards. You really can read them as 3 cards. What's going on in the mind? Here's a 3-card reading. What's going on in the physical world? Here's a 3-card reading. What's going on below the surface that we need to be aware of is a 3-card reading, right? And so now, if you've gotten comfortable with a 3-card, it's very easy to build that to a 9-card. If you know, when you decide you want to have more cards to add in. So I think that the 3-card is an amazing reading. And then if you want to add in that actionable do and don't, I think that is wonderful to add that actionable information right there as that 5-card that I talked about. Also, again, love the elemental cross like this, and you can use it for all different kinds of positions. I use it for the 4 elements and the 5th element of spirit, or what's at the heart of the matter, right? That's a great one. And then you can build from there into larger ones like a Celtic Cross, or creating your own as I eventually did. But all of those things, I think that even though I have so many different spreads on my shop that I do for people, so many that I do for myself, the 3-card is foundational. And if I am doing readings for myself, just, you know, I'm going to do a daily reading for myself, I'm going to pull 3 cards. It's just a beautiful, it gives you just enough information to be able to pull and to be able to dig into when I just want to have a quick message. So I think I just probably said the whole video twice, but I'm just, you know, I'm not going to edit this one. It is what it is. A little ramble with you and between you and me about spreads. So if you've got some favorite spreads, please list them or talk about them down in the comments and help people out. But don't be afraid of spreads. Even if it is, if you see a large spread and you think, you know what, that looks kind of cool, go for it, right? You know, you can just, you don't have to speed do it. Like, just sit down with each of those positions and think, okay, what does this card say to me in this particular position? Okay, go to the next one. What does this card mean to me in this position? And kind of start to build the puzzle if it's something that intrigues you. But if looking at a large spread makes you panic, take it back. Take it back. You can get all the information you need out of 3 cards. Now, I will say I very rarely ever pull a single card. I just don't. It doesn't happen unless it's an oracle card adding on to the end of a reading. I almost I want to say never, but you know, the adage, you never say never. But I could very close to just being able to say I don't ever pull a single card other than an oracle card, and that's because there are already a bunch of other cards on the table. I also don't very often, almost never pull 2 cards, although it is a great if you just have okay, you know, a message from the feminine, a message from a masculine, a do and a don't, just a straight up do and a don't card, something like that. But truthfully, I don't do it. I generally always am going to pull 3 cards, and that's for playing cards. Certainly for Lenormand or anything like that, I don't draw anything less than 3 cards. So yeah, a 3 card to me is single cards, and people do. It's not saying you can't. I'm just saying I personally don't really do. I think it just gives you enough to have a conversation and to tell a story. And so that's why I really love the 3 card reading, and then I of course love to then build. So I hope that this was helpful, more helpful than confusing, and I wish you so much, you know, have fun, enjoy, get your cards on the table. That's the real key, right? Is just to get those cards on the table. We can collect all the decks that we want, we can collect all the books that we want, but really in the end it's having that one deck in your hand and laying those cards on the table and just using them and playing with them and getting to know them and digging deep with them. That's where the real beauty of card slinging, as they call it, lies.